You are listening to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast, a show by personal trainers for personal trainers. It's time to become a better trainer, get more clients, and change more lives. And now, here's your host, the head coach and founder of Fitness Mentors, Eddie Lester.
Hey guys, welcome to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast. I'm your host, Eddie Lester. I'm here today with Chris Cooper. He is the owner and founder of twobrainbusiness.com, as well as the owner of 2 brick-and-mortar gyms, and also a multi-time best-selling author of books in the fitness business related space. So I just want to welcome him, and we're here really today to get into all about the gym specific, we'll say, implications from this event. But yeah, well, Chris, so glad to have you on.
Thanks, Eddie. I've been really excited for this interview because I started as a personal trainer back in 1996, believe it or not. And I still just kind of love getting down into the weeds of this stuff, even though I don't actually coach day to day anymore. Most of my coaching is for business owners now. But, my heart and soul has always been like in the trenches with personal trainers. So this is going to be a lot of fun.
Love it. Yeah, and I'd love it if you could maybe just expand around your background and how you've kind of moved in the fitness industry to be where you are now.
Sure, man. Yeah. So I started in 1996. I went to university in a new degree called exercise science back then. And they were just kind of making it up as they went along. I mean, there was there was a rock climbing course that was mandatory. It was wild. But I really lucked out into a job in Chicago, left Canada on 3 days notice, moved there. And then I worked in Wisconsin after that. And I've got a ton of stories about this stuff, but eventually I found my way back to Northern Ontario, and I got a job in a treadmill store, and I started doing personal training there. And what would happen is I would close the store at 5:00 and I'd walk into the back parking lot, and there'd be a client there waiting for me. And the only equipment that I actually owned was a kind of a rusty barbell and like this pull sled that I had made out of a shopping cart. And so I'd train people in the back park. So even though there was this store full of hundreds of thousands of dollars of state-of-the-art equipment, I couldn't use any of it. It wasn't mine.
Yeah.
So I trained people for a few years back there. And then eventually I got hired by a local personal trainer who wanted to expand. And so I was in this personal training studio for 2 or 3 years. I was publishing a lot of content, making kind of a name for myself locally. And pretty soon, I had 50 clients. I had more than the owner did, but I wasn't making enough to survive. And, I had a new wife, a new baby, a brand new mortgage. And I said, the only way I'm going to survive this is if I go on my own. Naively thinking that every business owner made a ton of money. And so I went around to tour local gym or local spaces that might work for a gym. And the very first spot I looked at, the realtor was a client of the owner of the studio where I worked, and he reported back to him. And the owner was like, look, I'm not going to fire you. You got 5 days to get out, kind of thing. And so I left, started my own, and a friend of mine joined me 2 weeks into it, and that was Catalyst Fitness, founded in 2005.
Awesome.
It was great. In 2008, I decided the only way to scale was to start running groups. We found CrossFit, started running CrossFit groups. I said, I love this. This is way more fun than personal training. Opened a second location, nearly went bankrupt. I'm really condensing several years into one here, Eddie. But I found a mentor. The mentor basically saved my business. I started writing every single day online on a blog called don'tbuyads.com. And
is that still active?
It is. It's live. I don't write there anymore, but I do still publish every day.
Great concept. I'm sure that's awesome.
Yeah. So there's about 350 blog posts there. When it was time to kind of close that site down and move on, I published everything in 2012 into a book called 2 Brain Business.
Awesome.
And that's the best-selling fitness business book of all time now. And
love it.
It didn't even have page numbers at the time. It was so.
That's awesome. And
yeah.
So tell me about so basically you also with 2 Brain Business mentor, just like you were mentored to help, we'll say, rebuild your fitness or your gym business. Tell me about, kind of the last, we'll say 2 weeks of the mentoring that you're doing with a lot of because we have a ton of personal trainers here that are currently working at gyms that are now, that all the gyms are closed pretty nationwide now, by pretty much being forced to be closed. The personal trainers go into work, and a lot of them are just kind of on the side of being the employee and kind of not having a lot of understanding around what they can doing, how they can help their gym. So just tell me a little bit about your experience with gyms over the last 2 weeks and kind of all about.
Sure, man. So what happened was when we started getting a lot of clients, we have about 850 gyms around the world now. And when I got over 100, I said, we need to collect data from every single gym to figure out what's working. It can't just be what I think works anymore. So we're going to act like the way that I thought a franchise would act, which is find what the best gyms are doing, teach that to everybody else. And so that became my mission back in 2016. I had to spend about 1.3 million figuring out how to do it. And, but today it really works. And so when a gym anywhere in the world develops some new thing that's working, and it could be a marketing tactic, it could be like a website landing page, it could be how they train their coaches, how they hire people, whatever, we find it. And then we put it through a filter of like data and testing and stuff. And if it truly does prove to be better than what we teach, then we update our curriculum and teach that back. Now that's a long-term play. And it turns out that most franchises don't actually do that anyway. But what it set us up to do was react really quickly when coronavirus hit China first. So even though this system was never meant to be like an early warning system, when COVID popped up in China, we immediately got on the phone with some of our gyms there and said, what's going on? And we just started trying, throwing things at the wall to keep them open. Some things worked, some things didn't. It got worse, way worse than we anticipated. But the lessons that we learned in China, we took to Italy, which was kind of the next to close their gyms. And we said, okay, well, we've got a pretty good handle on what worked in China and what didn't, mostly what didn't. Do these things. And okay, that actually worked even better in Italy. And then, the next market that we were in was Berlin, and they just like shut the city down in the middle of the night. We actually had a two-brain mentor in Berlin at the time. And we were able to turn to those gyms and say, okay, we can pretty definitively say, here's what works. But by the time the disease traveled to the east coast of America, North America, we were pretty certain like what the path had to be to keep the gym open and operating. As it moved east to west, the data just supported what we were saying, which is basically you can no longer access your facility. It doesn't mean you have to stop coaching. And two-brain gyms in North America have more than a 90% conversion rate, meaning their clients are 90% likely to still be around, still paying their full membership. And some of the gyms are actually growing during the shutdown right now. So,
awesome. And I assume that's in the online space.
Exactly. Yeah, Eddie. So you have to kind of, as a gym owner anyway, and I hope this helps us segue into the talk about coaches, but you have to zoom out and you have to ask yourself, like, what job am I actually doing? And for us as coaches, the job that we're actually doing is getting people to their goals. Now, we had a certain toolkit. We had, all kinds of equipment. We had gym hours. We had insurance or whatever. We had maybe staff that were booking our appointments for us. We had a payment gateway. Those tools are gone. But that doesn't mean that we can't work anymore. We just have to develop a new toolkit. And for many of us, many of the gym owners anyway, had never explored the online option because they had all these sunk costs in their facility. So they were dedicated to getting people into their facility, and that's it. They were aware of the online option, but that opportunity never became an urgent one until their gym was forced to close. Now, some gym owners really just can't make that leap. They're stuck in, my gym is closed, I'm done, and they've gone bankrupt. But a lot more gym owners are still open right now. And there are things definitely that a coach can do to maintain their income, to keep their clients getting healthy, and to help the gym open up faster. and we'll get into those.
I love that. Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of the main point of today's podcast is really, as we think about the effects of the coronavirus on all businesses, but specifically, gyms in general that personal trainers are working at, the ability of the trainer to help is kind of where I really wanted to focus, because I know so many of you out there. So many of our students are either recently started at a gym or maybe 2 to 3 years in and crushing it at the gym, and they're now being crushed because they can't train their clients at the specific gym location. We have a ton of private trainers out there that we're either using a location or training outside, which that's not even recommended anymore. So there's so many of our students out there are kind of lost. And yeah, kind of thinking, I guess kind of jumping straight into it. What can a trainer do now to help their gym? We here at Fitness Mentors have been talking all the last 2 weeks about taking your individual business online. But what happens if you're working? Yeah, if you're working at a gym right now and all those clients are kind of you train at the gym. What can a trainer do now to help their gym, to help themselves through this sort of time?
Yeah, so you're right on, Eddie. Like the faster a gym can get, or the better a gym can keep their revenue up, the faster they're going to reopen. Mm-hmm. I have this sneaking fear that a lot of especially the big chain gyms, they're not even going to tell their staff that they're out of money. They're waiting to see what happens, but their cash flow is tight. And like 90 days from now, they might not reopen, but they might not tell their staff that either. So let's start with the easiest examples. You're working at a micro gym, like a CrossFit gym or a HIIT gym or a boot camp gym. The easiest thing that you can do is approach your owner and say, I got an idea. We're a coaching business, not an access business. We can pivot to one-on-one. And the first thing that you do is you contact all of your clients and you say, hey, Eddie, the bad news is we can't use our facility. The great news is I don't need our facility. I can coach you anyway. So here's what we're going to do. We've got this online training program. It's more expensive than what you're currently paying for your gym membership, but that's okay. Just for the duration of this crisis, we're going to give you that online training program for the same price you're currently paying. Okay.
Love it.
I'll still be your coach. So, okay, maybe you have to create this online training program from scratch, but we can come back to that if you want to. Then the next thing that you do is you deliver the gym's workouts to the clients, but you tailor it a little bit each day. So for example, if you're in a HIIT gym where everybody does the same workout, like a CrossFit gym, all you have to do is email every single client every single day, a short video. Okay. Hey, Eddie, I know your goal is bodybuilding. Here's how this workout is going to help you get to that goal of stage prep in 6 months. Mm-hmm. More likely, you're going to have a client who wants weight loss. So you say, here, Marissa, we're doing this workout today, but here's how I want you to tailor it to optimize the weight loss effect from this workout. Okay. And actually, Eddie, personal trainers have a massive advantage here over CrossFit coaches because CrossFit coaches are trained to spot movement flaws and correct them. They're not trained to explain, here's why this workout will help you. Mm-hmm. The personal trainers are. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, just to kind of just kind of add right there, the number one thing we've been saying here for the last 2 weeks is immediately, guys, even if you're out there and listening, and you still haven't done this, immediately call and connect with every single one of your clients. That's one of the most important things. And it doesn't even matter about like, hey, I'm calling you because I want to continue training you. You need to call them immediately and say, hey, how are you doing during this tough time? The empathy and keeping the relationship that you have and have had over the last however long, like that's one of the most important things to just really being a supportive coach is really to be that human that's there to ask them those questions. And to be honest, when I think about just the last 2 weeks, I've only had one colleague or one person in another business say, hey, how are you and your family doing? And honestly, it kind of blew me away. Like a lot of people are like, oh, how's business? Are you surviving this? It's like that one person asked me, hey, how are your kids? How's your wife? how are you doing? And I was like, wow, like nobody's actually asked me that. And I thought, I was like, wow, I was emotional. I'm like, oh my God, it was nice. And it really built a close connection with that person that asked that. Even, just know that aside from all business that we do together, someone's there just to ask that question is so important. And for you listening out there, like connecting with your clients immediately, quickly, and making it about anything besides, empathizing with what they're going through, I think is so important. And beyond that, like Chris was mentioning, is setting up the pathway to continue business. So you go ahead.
Yeah, Eddie, I really agree, man. I think in my career as a personal trainer, looking back, probably about 50% of my clients were only coming because I was the only one in their whole life that said, good job, or you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. And if you're that person now, more than ever, you're gonna show them that you care, and that'll retain them. The next step is you should reach out to former clients, and exactly what you just said. You're not pitching them anything. You're saying, how are you doing really? And just providing support for them. While some Two Brain gyms are actually growing right now, it's because they've laid this foundation over time. So you can't expect somebody to be like, oh, great to hear from you, take my money. But what you can do is lay this foundation of trust that's really going to pay off when this crisis is over.
Love that.
If I am I'm at a bigger chain gym, and I'm responsible for maintaining my own book of clients maybe, or maybe I'm renting space at somebody else's gym. I think my top priority right now would be to shift to habits coaching. So if you look on the big software platforms, none of them keep really great retention data, but if you look at the most searched terms on those platforms, you'll find things like structure, mindfulness, sleep quality. And I know at my household, that's what's suffering, right? We can all sleep in till 6 now. And there's no school to go to, so we can start our online schoolwork at 10 or whatever, right? And it's okay if we stay up till 11, and it's okay, and while we're really enjoying the family time, it's everybody struggles with this kind of structure. So what I would do is I would reach out to as many clients as I knew from the gym and just say, hey, I'm here for you. Let me help you out with some structure in your day. Here's a sample. I love
that structure. I love that.
Yeah, man. So here's a sample. This is what I'm doing. I'm getting up at 6. I'm working out at 7. I'm eating my first meal, blah, 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 blah. And you can even say hey, if you want to track your meals or something in MyFitnessPal or another app, I'll take a look for you. Now, it really depends what your contract is with the gym. If the gym says you can't solicit clients outside your contract, you got to be really careful here, but you can still help the gym. If the gym doesn't make that stipulation, honestly, this is a great time to build your personal brand with the clients. And while I was getting ready for this interview, I was asking myself, what would you do if you were starting from scratch today? And I would start online anyway. I mean, even without the coronavirus pandemic, I would try to get my first 10 clients online.
That's such unique and great advice. And honestly, that's guys putting that out there from one fitness professional to another. That's the first time I've truly heard somebody say, don't even think local gym regardless. Even before the coronavirus happened, it's all moving towards technology. It's all moving online. And I in one of our chats before this, you had mentioned about the structure and habits coaching, and how, that there's, as a personal trainer, we are so responsible for, or we feel so responsible and so, we'll say, tied to the fitness routine. But where do we do some of our best work is through providing the structure, is through providing the habit coaching, is through these other elements of coaching. Yes, we're the fitness expert, but there's so many ways that you can help people get towards their goals. And online, you're opened up to way more than just here's an exercise program. And I love the fact that you went out there and said, if I was starting, regardless of my personal training career right now, I would go online, get 10 clients, and then decide. I love that. That's innovative. And I appreciate that because I kind of am in that same boat as well.
Yeah, thanks, Eddie. We actually work with people who are just starting gyms, and maybe that's 10% of our clients. But what we tell them is this: first, we're going to get 5 clients online. Then you're going to meet those clients in person to work through their nutrition plan. And now you've got some cash flow. So you're going to find a small spot. But the interesting thing here, and we don't usually talk about this publicly, is at the point before they start looking for locations, their mentor has to turn to them and say, are you sure you don't just want to continue on this path? Like right now you have a net income, right? And maybe it's only $2,000 a month at that point, but you're done work at noon. You don't have to worry about paying the rent when the next coronavirus comes along. You don't have a rental payment. Like you're truly anti-fragile right now. Are you sure you want a bricks and mortar? And sometimes the answer is no. A lot of times they have their heart set on that when they start, and that's fine, but they open up cash flow positive and stuff. But if I was starting out today, that's the question I'd be asking myself the most right now is, do I need bricks and mortar at all?
Yeah. No, I love that. Actually, just kind of relaying to the process of me building fitness mentors and stuff. And I love to be really candid with our audience and our students and this goes back to our very first podcast I ever did, which was our core values and cool. reflecting on what is most important to me, period. And specifically in like, if I was to label core values, and one of those core values for me was time. And I always say like, if there's anything that I build my life and build businesses and build my family around, is me having access to free time. And so every single time there came a crossroad in the sense of, or a fork in the road on, do I go more towards tying myself into a specific class at a specific scheduled time, or opening a school that helps personal trainers in which I have that brick and mortar. Every time when I reflected on my core values, everything said 100% the best way to, we'll say, practice your core value of time is to avoid tying yourself to things that take up your time. And like you just mentioned, that brick and mortar space, you need someone to open that. And that has to be you. And especially starting out, you have to be there to get people in. You have to do the type of advertising that brings people into a specific location. So I mean, that's so once again innovative that you're moving towards. I mean that's so true for so many of our students right now that are even before this closure of everything is, do you need extra right now? Do you have to? This is why I always say, guys, like go to your core values before you make the decision moving forward. And if your core value is, we'll say, personal time, helping people in a face-to-face way, whatever you whittle that core value down to, then that gym is absolutely your go-to. That's true to yourself. So I just want to interrupt there and kind of say just a little bit about my decision making in building a business, or in building fitness mentors, really.
That's cool, Eddie. I mean, I can add a dollars and cents argument to that. So your values are most important. Absolutely. With new technology, you can totally prioritize your time. That's never been possible. Even our parents couldn't do that, right? But the truth is that most gyms, even a micro gym, operates around a 15% profit margin, including the owner's pay. And that's really important. So what that means is that if you can make $5,000 a month doing online training, to make that same amount of money in a bricks and mortar gym, you have to do $30,000 a month in revenue.
Wow.
And you're not going to do that on your first month, are you? So you have to think about, and you have to do that consistently, which means that you become a marketing machine, right? The hard part is getting the audience, and you got to keep the audience, and you can't stop marketing anymore, because retention in a group class is, a third of what it is one-on-one. And we don't have good data for online, that's the caveat here, but you're going to have to actually build a business. The thing about online is, like, you can buy yourself a pretty good job. You can make a living as a personal trainer without learning the skill set of being a business owner. And that's what I think a lot of us didn't understand. I thought that owning a gym meant that I was buying myself a higher paying job as a coach. Mm-hmm. And if I was just an amazing coach, I would have a great business. Well, that was totally wrong, and it almost bankrupted me. I had to develop the skill set of a business owner. But these days, I still would say I didn't have a choice. These days you do have a choice. And if you don't want to actually learn business, you don't have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's really something that we try to focus on in our certified online personal trainer courses is the steps that you need to take in advance, and then as you build your business to set it up to be successful. Because so many of our students and so many trainers in general, when they get started out, it's passion for helping others through health and fitness. And I was the same guy 100%. Like, I love helping people through fitness. I do it for free. Like do all of that. And then really when it comes down to it, the what I didn't realize, and this is something I learned within the first 3 months, is that I need to build the business structure and foundation to even help people get to where, or to be able to help people. That is my passion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that kind of shocked me, because I was like, I specifically didn't become a business major, and I went to fitness because I was like, oh, business is boring, or, like all that stuff. Like, I just want to help people achieve their goals, and that's fun, and, work with people in that sense. So it's really funny how it's so important to have so much more than just the passion when we think about becoming a personal trainer. And I do explain this to a ton of new trainers. And that's why one of the first things that we teach in our certified personal trainer course is business. It's like, hey, this is what's going to be expected of you on the lowest level, the simplest form, to even be successful, to, we'll say, continue working as a personal trainer. That's and right. with all the turnover rates of, that I think it's 50,000 trainers a year, we'll say, stop being personal trainers. And that's within their first 2 years. I think it's about 30% or some crazy number about that stop, or that basically the revolving door stop training, because it's just not working for them in that sense. So our main goal was like, we need to help people right away, so that, like, there's still about 300 to 350,000 trainers in the US. When I first got into it, there was about 280 to 300,000. So while absolutely the fitness industry is growing, it's from people getting passionately into it without understanding the business side, and then feeling like they're lost. So I mean, that's why I feel like we have such good congruence here, is because you and I are both coming from the standpoint of, yes, absolutely, we love fitness, we love helping people, but you and we even needed to set and lay the foundation to be successful on a business standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that I definitely missed before I started a business. So I guess, if I was working at another gym right now, I would be very careful to not tread on whatever agreement that I had. Now, here's what's coming. I mean, in Canada and even in the US now too, IRSA is like petitioning for bailout funding for the fitness industry. I don't know if that's going to trickle down to the trainers or not, but a lot of states actually have like employment compensation. Yeah. So for example, at my gym, I could get 10% of my payroll paid by the government. It's not a lot, but it helps. So if I was like, oh, wow, I gotta feed my family here, the first thing that I would do is make sure, like, am I treading on my contract, right? I don't want to turn this acute crisis into I'm getting fired. Mm-hmm. So if my gym plans to bring me back in 2 months, that's my priority. If it's uncertain, and if I might be getting fired anyway, if, my contract doesn't prohibit it, I would probably go to my one-on-one client list and say, hey, look, we can make this pivot. Somebody asked me this yesterday. What happens if the client has bought 50 personal training sessions from the gym already, right? And I mean, I got to be honest with you, that's a tough question. I would probably say, if they've got less than 10 sessions, honor them, but do them as quickly as you can, and then they buy the next package from you. If they have more than that, then you can say, hey, look, like, I'm sorry, I'm not the gym, but if you want to continue training, here's the price. The one thing that I wouldn't do, so I would do it for $0, or I would do it for full price. I would not discount it. Okay. And then, so if you have a contract with a gym that does prohibit training clients outside the gym, I would get in touch with somebody at that corporation and say, am I able to provide mindfulness training, habits training, nutrition coaching, and go that route. And then at least you've got some kind of sideline.
Mhm.
And, the worst case is like, if you're not sure if you're going to get brought back, then you might want to start thinking about building your own audience. But that's the hardest part of this,
Yeah. And I honestly think through this and as trainers looking towards their gyms is communicate with the people that run your gym, communicate with your nearest boss.
Yeah.
The best thing you can do at a time like this is contact and understand the situation that is personal to your gym.
Yeah.
And that reaching out to the owner and first off asking them how they're doing, extremely important. Every gym owner right now is going through a tough time. Empathizing with them will really, really help build that connection with you and that person. And then really, really asking them, how can I help you? Can I help you? And then beyond that, what can I do to assist the gym in like Chris said, opening faster? Or, thinking about where you're at. And I've talked to dozens of trainers that have had 30 to 40 sessions a week in a gym that are now just completely flat. And it's heartbreaking, but at the same time, we're all reacting to it and having that we'll say maturity and having that understanding to reach out to the nearest person, help, if you are under contract in that way, talk to the person that you're under contract with. The communication element in this is so important and will lead to the best result. Be forthright with what you want. Talk to them about what they want. How can you come together? How can you help them get through this and help yourself get through this? I think that's one of the best things that trainers can do that are in that gym situation. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, if you're at a gym and you're working at a micro gym where the owner personally and you work with them every single day, a lot of these gym owners are making tough choices right now. None of them want to lay anybody off. None of them want to fire people. They're all planning to be reopened in 60 days, but they are probably not able to float everybody. And so if you stand up and say, I want to help, tell me what to do, there's a high likelihood that you'll keep making money.
Absolutely.
I want to share this with you, Eddie, because years ago, like 2013, we had a little stock market dip up here. And a friend of mine, a client who was like a broker, said, Chris, you need to read Antifragile. And this is a book by Nassim Taleb. And the subtitle is Things That Gain from Disorder. And he said, right now you have a fragile business. If our economy goes any further south, people will cancel their membership at your gym. But you used to have an anti-fragile business because as a personal trainer, you could come to my house. You could, give me nutrition coaching. You had a dozen ways to go. And so while this was crashing and my business was still not doing amazing then, I was reading this book. And one of the examples Taleb gives in the book is, what if there's a worldwide pandemic and your business gets shut down? I kid you not. And he's a trader, right? Like he's mostly talking about the stock market, but that was one thing. He said, like, who is going to survive? And he says, cab drivers, personal trainers, and prostitutes are the only three anti-fragile industries that people will always need. And so first that gave me a ray of hope.
Getting PG-13 over here, guys.
I know.
No, I'm joking.
So,
I love it.
Yeah, so that gave me some hope. And I think you've probably got a lot of listeners out there who could maybe use some.
Absolutely.
Second is, it made me think, like, what would I do if I didn't have my gym? And that's when I started looking at how to take this stuff online. And so we've actually been publishing articles about this. I've been training on Zwift for like a year and a half just to get used to it. And when this happened, to me, it was almost like, okay, well, now we don't have a choice. And when that burden of choice was removed, I felt clear and light and now I know what to do.
That's awesome.
And I hope that that's how some of your listeners feel after this too.
Absolutely. And we've been talking about staying optimistic through this whole thing. And absolutely, there's, for many of you out there, it's about this decision has been made for you. And maybe you were thinking about starting online. Maybe you were thinking about going private and starting your own business. Maybe you were thinking about a specific path that your life needed to go. This is a direct, we'll say example of, or we'll say direction given to you just by force. And there's the only thing that we can really do with this is move in the direction that's most true to ourselves and be optimistic about it. So I love that advice. And then I guess, or yeah, you go for it. I'll let you kind of
No, go ahead.
again. But I was going to get to just, if you guys go on twobrainbusiness.com, Chris has a lot of great blogs that he's published. I feel like he's publishing 2 or 3 a day on tips to get through this for gyms as well as for trainers. So if you go to his blog on twobrainbusiness.com, I just want to point out that you have 2 that kind of stuck out to me. One was a how to sell during social distancing. Do you want to talk just quickly about like what you were talking about in that blog?
Yeah, sure. So we have a team of mentors, and we also have specialists. And so what happens, we also have a media team. So every month I spend about $25,000 producing media to help gym owners mostly.
Awesome.
But a lot of the stuff is actually great for the solopreneur or the private personal trainer too. So when all this happened, the media team just froze all of our content and said, what do gym owners and coaches need the most right now?
Yeah.
And because we've got like 850 gyms, it wasn't hard to come up with some answers.
Yeah.
And so I look at the questions that they ask most often, and I say, what does the data say is the answer to this? What does experience support? And then, so as soon as we have that, we say, now how can we teach this? So quite often, Eddie, like we'll ask the question, how do you, first it was like, how do we retain clients? How do we stop from going bankrupt? But this week, what we're finding is a lot of the leading gyms are like, okay, we've got 90% retention. How do we get new clients?
Yeah.
And so there's a couple ways. If you're a micro gym owner or a personal trainer, the first thing that you want to do, of course, is retain your current clients. So I'm bringing this up under the sales banner because you're going to have to sell them on this new service, right? This is not what they signed up for. You're going to have to sell them on it. That's step 1. Step 2 is you need to sell it to your previous clients who have canceled. So you go back to your email list, or you go back to your cell phone text list or whatever, your address book, and you send them a text. How's it going? Great. Start a conversation. The third thing that you need to do is leverage your social network. And this is where social media really comes into play. So all you have to do is go on your Facebook page and say, hey, I'm testing this system out. I need 5 people to sign up right now for $199. This is going to be a $500 program. We're going to run this for 28 days or whatever it is. Who wants to do it? And most gyms actually get 5 people like within 24 hours to do that.
Absolutely. And I was just about to say, we've been telling our students the exact same thing, in the sense of there's you have a program that's worth a high dollar amount. You're currently going to be selling it and or discounting it significantly just because of this crisis. And that right there is such a huge buy signal that really, and people want that right now too. So
yeah. So the key to selling really is like really understanding what your clients need right now. And that is security, habits, consistency more than anything else. Equinox made this pivot, I don't know, a year ago with their accountability program. Lifetime is trying to pivot to this right now. And I just found out that a big chain of what they called hit gyms, so think like Orange Theory or F45, they're moving every single one of their trainers, so 1,000 trainers, onto personal coaching platforms. So for example, like now they're going to link up every client with a trainer to keep their membership dues going. And those trainers are usually, unfortunately, like minimum wage trainers, minimally educated, right? They're like desk staff. So if you can make that pivot first, you're laughing. The key is something that we call the prescriptive model, which is you sign up a client for a one-on-one intake interview, you get their goals, you get their measurements, and then you say, okay, based on your goals, here's what will get you there in this certain amount of time. And that determines what you offer them. So that might include exercise and or nutrition and or mindset. And you base your pricing on those 3 tiers. You make an honest prescription based on what the client wants before you tell them the price. If they say, I can't afford it, you say, okay, what's your budget? If I had that budget, I would do this. And that's it. And it takes a lot of reps to get comfortable at it, Eddie, but it works amazingly well.
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
So
Yeah. So I guess just kind of thinking about those things is as far as actionable advice right now, like number one right now, guys, is retain.
yeah,
Retention is like through this time is, I mean, I'm sure so many of you have experienced just like complete cut off. So once again, like we said in the beginning, communicate and reach out to every client that you have. And then also referencing what Chris said is going to every client that you've had in the past.
Yep.
And those that, as far as retention, that's great. And also remember, guys, clients that you've trained in the past are looking for this right now. Clients that you trained in the past are comfortable with you. There's a lot of benefits to reaching out to them. And it's once again, that's kind of like new sales by reaching out to those old people. They're like warm leads in that sense. And then leverage your social media. You know, immediately, guys, get on the posting content about health and fitness, ways that you are helping people, ways that you can help people, and then ask for that opportunity to help someone, like kind of Chris mentioned. Was there one more in there that did I miss as far as actionable items right now?
No,
at the end you were going for something, and I kind of was thinking about this, but yeah. No,
I mean that should get you your first 10 clients, which is enough to make you confident.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then that's it, and all you got to do is coach them. You know how to do that, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that. Well, yeah, kind of wrapping this up. What do you feel over the next, and this kind of might reference your plan blog, your 15, 60 or 90 day plan blog. But what do you think is something that can further help or maybe further research for our community? What can they be doing in the next 15, 60 and 90 days?
Sure. So the first thing is, like, if your billing cycle starts April 1st, then you got to get your clients to stick around through that billing cycle by offering them something that's even more valuable than what they're currently paying for, but offering it to them at that price. You also have to look at your expenses and say, like, what can I do here? There's a blog post that went up today about what to say to your landlord to get them to defer the rent.
Wow.
So you could do
that's
that.
for gym, correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you're a personal trainer, you can look at your expenses, but probably you don't have a lot of overhead anyway. So then the next step, 60 days, is like bring clients back and pivot to this online model. You can pivot to an online model in under 24 hours. Every major software platform brags about that. You know, I was on with Trainerize yesterday. They're like 6 hours end to end. You've got a personal website, blah, blah, blah. And then you should be looking at, like, how can I get these clients back when this is over? So that means staying in constant contact. Even if they're not paying you money, they're still paying you attention. And then at 90 days, your goal is get your money back. And so that could be lost wages from your employer. It could be employment benefits from the state or the country, depending where you're listening to this. And I guess, like, the overarching goal, though, is how do you prevent this from happening again? How do you become more anti-fragile as a contractor or as a business owner? And
love that.
I honestly think that we're all going to come out of this stronger, Eddie. And
I love it.
If there's anything that I've learned about leadership in the last 20 years, is that a lot of people are thrust into, like, their darkest time in life. They don't want to be picked. They never said, pick me to lead you, but they come out of that and it turns out to be their finest hour. And I think that a lot of fitness entrepreneurs have that opportunity right now. None of us chose this. All of us are going to be better for it when it's over.
I love that. That's awesome. And guys, if you're in a situation in which you can help your gym owner, if you're in a situation where you are a gym owner, if you're in any sort of, we'll say, position that you can help even a friend that owns a gym, reach out to Chris via his website, brainbusiness.com. He's got a simple book a call signal or a button right on his website. He is so experienced when it comes to understanding the ways that you can be successful regardless of a global pandemic around running your gym. And when I think of all the people that have helped me a ton in my life, just like you can probably agree, Chris, is the mentors that I've chosen to learn from. And we here at 100%. Fitness Mentors are getting you prepared for this career path in fitness. And, I really feel that Chris adds such a huge, we'll say, additional learning process when you think about the gym business, when you think about brick and mortar, when you think about transitioning a gym to have a combination of online services and brick and mortar services. I mean, this is the future, guys. And I really, really think that if you are in that situation, reach out to Chris. He's always available for you guys. You can schedule a call right through his site. And also, guys, if you're in that position where you need to make money quickly, if you're in that position where you need to quickly launch an online business, we are actually offering a specific, an introductory business building course for free for online trainers. And the way that you get access to that is actually by texting online trainer. That's online space trainer. To 31996. And I'm actually giving away the entire business building section of our online personal trainer certification course. Because I really feel in this moment, there's so many of you that need that boost. And I want to be able to be here for you guys to quickly get something set up and built. You will have access for 7 days only. And I did that on purpose because I don't want you guys sitting here and thinking about getting started online. I want you to get the next 7 days, jump into this. Once again, text online space trainer to 31996. It'll give you access right away. That will allow you to immediately begin building your business over the next 7 days and get something started that you can be making money right away, just to help you through these, next 50, 60, and 90 days, kind of like Chris said. So
that's awesome. Thanks for doing that, Eddie. You're going to help a lot of people with that.
Awesome. And then guys, if you, and I'll put all of the links in our show notes. Definitely check those out below this video, or in our podcast, right on whichever podcast service you're listening through. Chris, is there anything you want to say, kind of wrapping up?
No, thanks a lot, man. This is fantastic. Awesome. I think that, I really think that fitness professionals have a unique once in a lifetime opportunity to grow right now, but also to serve others. And so thanks for helping them do that.
Awesome. No, and I'm grateful for you for continuing that all the way through the gym ownership and beyond. So Chris, thanks so much for joining me today. And I'll look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a good one.
Awesome.
As always, thanks for listening to the Certified Personal Trainer Podcast. You can learn more about Fitness Mentors at fitnessmentors.com. Be sure to share this podcast on social media. And remember, we are here to help you succeed.